Let's now go over how to fill in the accessibility table in the VPAT. So this is where we state whether or not we conform with the criteria in the technical standard. There are going to be two columns that we need to fill in. One is going to be the conformance level. The other is going to be remarks and explanations. We will use the audit report to fill in these columns. On this next slide, I have a screenshot showing us Table 1 success criteria level A. Here we can see many different criteria. In the left column, which is marked criteria, the middle column is marked conformance level, and then on the right side, we have remarks and explanations. We are going to fill in conformance level and remarks and explanations. So for the conformance level column, there are only 5 potential terms that we will use to populate this column. And they are supports, partially supports, does not support, not applicable, and not evaluated. And right now I'm reading from a screenshot from an actual VPAT that sets out these different terms. So let's go over the definitions for each. For supports, we have the functionality of the product has at least one method that meets the criterion without known defects or meets with equivalent facilitation. That is a very complicated way of saying that the product or service is conformant with the criterion. Next, we have partially supports. Some functionality of the product does not meet the criterion. So the way I look at this is as if if our product meets a part of the criterion, then we'd have partially supports. And the way to think of a part is, let's use the example of success criterion 1.3.1, info and relationships. Now, that has multiple layers to it. So there can be some aspects of 1.3.1 that we are conformant with, but there may be other aspects where we are not conformant with. So let's just say that we have headings in place and they are correctly nested, but we are missing bullet points. So we don't have semantics for an unordered list. Instead, we just have dashes, and in that case, we wouldn't be fully conformant with 1.3.1. So that could be a case where we have partially supports. And then the third term is does not support. So the majority of the product functionality does not meet the criterion. And so for here, we would just have does not support. And that's where you're non-conformant with a criterion. We also have not applicable. So the criterion is not relevant to the product. So here, think about a situation where we have audio descriptions that are required, and our product does not have any videos. In that case, then the criterion would be not applicable. Let me go back one over here, and let's just look at, yeah, with 1.2.3 audio description or media alternative. Here, if we don't have a video, then that's not going to be necessary. So we could mark not applicable. And let's continue on with not evaluated. The product has not been evaluated against the criterion. This can only be used in WCAG level AAA criteria. So if you want to bring out not evaluated, you can only do it with conformance level AAA. This is not an out for if you don't want to evaluate against something in single A or double A. That's not the case here. So not evaluated can only be used with conformance level AAA criteria. All right, continuing on with remarks and explanations. Here we have another screenshot from the VPAT. Remarks and explanations. This section may include, and then we have the sub bullet points, information regarding the testing of a given criteria, information on application dependencies to support accessibility. So, for example, OS, app frameworks, browsers recommended. Another bullet point, how the customer can find more information and about accessibility issues. One method can be to include the bug ID where customers can call the company's customer support to get additional information. And then last, we have known workarounds for accessibility issues. So with remarks and explanations, this column is only absolutely required where you enter does not support or partially supports. And so otherwise, you can leave this blank, but I don't recommend that. I recommend that you fill in the remarks and explanations column wherever possible, just to add context, to add any supplemental information that can support that conformance level term that you've used. So even if it's fully supports, you don't technically have to enter any details in the remarks and explanations column, but it does look better for your ACR when you do add additional information in the remarks and explanations column. So typically, you'll want to have this filled out even beyond just does not support and partially supports. So let's continue on. And then for additionally, and this gets at what I was just saying, for remarks and explanations, detailed remarks should be provided in the remarks and explanations column to justify your answer in the conformance level column. When the conformance level is partially supports or does not support, the remarks should identify the functions or features with issues to how they do not fully support. If the criterion does not apply, explain why. If an accessible alternative is used, describe it. So again, just be detailed here. This is where you want to put in the effort to show that you have actually evaluated, you have assessed the accessibility, and you are including information to help the reader of the ACR have additional context or any additional information that they need. So overall, you want your ACR to be accurate and complete. We keep coming back to these two words because that is what is really the most important when it comes to your ACR, is that it is both accurate and complete. It's one thing to be accurate and incomplete, but we want to make sure that we have everything completed. So the accessibility table must be accurate and complete, and it acts as a mirror and reflects on your current state of accessibility. So this is not a marketing document. You're not going to lie here. You're not going to embellish. You're not going to anticipate any accessibility changes coming. Again, this is a mirror on your current state of accessibility. So whatever is showing in that mirror is going to come through in the ACR. So again, do not think about, well, we're going to release this change and that's going to then it's going to be completely different. So we may as well just mark conformant or supports here because we're in good shape. And when I say mark conformant, I just mean think of this as conformant and then mark as supports. No, you want to make sure that you mirror your state of accessibility. And if you are anticipating a change, then wait until that change comes and then have the ACR issued. But otherwise, you're going to make sure that whatever the state of the accessibility of your product and service, that reflects in the ACR. So that's what I have in this last bullet point. Align with the current state of accessibility for your product or service. So then here for completing the VPAT and issuing the ACR. So here are just some final considerations. You want to remove the first 9 pages of instructions because these are just instructions. We don't need to include this in the ACR, so you do need to remove them. Also, make sure that the document itself is accessible. It should be if you've used the template, but just make sure that the document is accessible and that you haven't done anything to introduce an accessibility issue. Also, pay attention to whether or not you're converting into a different type of format. Just keep that in mind. And then review the details, review the accessibility table to make sure, again, that all information is accurate and complete. Look at the remarks and explanations column and make sure that remarks and explanations column provides a nice complement to the conformance level column and supports whatever you've entered, whatever term you've entered into that conformance level column. We want to make sure that anybody who is reading this ACR is able to easily extract the current state of accessibility for our product or service. And then last I have here, deliver as a Word file, as a PDF, or as an HTML file. Okay, so we will conclude with resources. If you need help with accessibility, with VPAT services or any other accessibility services, you can visit accessible.org. Accessibility Tracker is a platform that tracks all accessibility issues, not just those flagged by a scan, and has AI to help your team make fixes. And then in the description for this video, I will include a link to the full playlist for this VPAT training, along with any updates to this lesson and additional resources to help support you with accessibility. Just note that this VPAT training will continue on with additional common questions that we get asked about VPATs and ACRs. So that will do it for this part of the training, but we will continue on with common questions. So again, consult the description for more resources, updates, and the full playlist.